were in response to Israel's killing of one of its top commanders and leaders of Iran-backed militias in the region. They said this was revenge for the killings of Hezbollah chief Hassan Nasrallah and IRGC commander in the Lebanese capital of Beirut on 27th of September. They added that this operation was over and that they weren't looking for any more escalation. But that is far from reality, because now the Iranian Ministry of Intelligence has issued a threat, and that too in Hebrew. An execution list has been put out by Iran comprising of what they call are Israeli terrorists, and Benjamin Netanyahu's name is on top of that list. Now all eyes are on Israel's next move. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said that this strike by Iran was a big mistake, and he warned that Tehran will pay for it. A diplomatic solution is what Israel has been in favor of, but is that possible now? Israel has barred the entry of UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres, declaring him persona non grata for his failure to unequivocally condemn Iran's massive missile attack. So who is going to find that diplomatic solution if there is one? Now, while Iran does not recognize Israel's right to exist and seeks its eradication, Israel has spent many years running covert operations against Tehran. But today, are we on the cusp of a wider regional conflict, one that could engulf the rest of the world as well? Before we get into that, let's take you through some of the defining moments of the attack that took place late last night on Israel. A passenger on a flight to Dubai captured this alarming footage last night of the Iranian rocket barrage. The video that then went viral on social media seemed like there were strange lights in the sky that were out to be ballistic missiles. Now, this is actually pictures of that particular ballistic missile that took off from Iran. Iranian state media put that footage out. The location and date of this video is not confirmed independently, but they say this is from last night. This was the passenger plane video that I was speaking of earlier, where you can see what seemed like bright lights at the beginning, but eventually turned out to be ballistic missiles. Footage that was caught from the window of a plane. The missile strike led to air raid sirens across many cities in Israel. It forced nearly 10 million Israelis into bomb shelters. Israel said that most of those missiles were shot down, intercepted by their powerful air defense systems. Iran claims 90% of their projectiles had hit their targets. A group of MPs in Iran's parliament then was seen celebrating this. They stood there, they chanted "Death to America" as they celebrated those attacks inside the parliament. Leaders were seen with their fist up, standing in solidarity near the parliament speaker as he confirmed that attack took place on Israel. Now, Iran fired these missiles and escalated years-long conflict between not just the two countries, but the Arab allies of Iran as well. Seconds into that attack, Israel put up its anti-missile system to intercept Iran and sounded air raid sirens. Now, Israel's Iron Dome is often spoken of, but that's not the one that sounded the alarm this time around. That's not the only thing that was put into effect of fighting this off. Iran's ballistic missiles were fired at a much higher altitude, and the Iron Dome can only intercept short-range rockets. Israel used the mid-range David Sling system this time around, which is designed to shoot down ballistic missiles fired from about 100 to 200 kilometers away. It's developed and manufactured jointly by Israel and the United States. The long-range Arrow 2 and Arrow 3 interceptors were also deployed. They were developed by Israel in collaboration with another firm, keeping this kind of threat from Iran in mind. The systems are designed to engage threats both in and outside the atmosphere. They can operate at an altitude that allows for safe disposal of any non-conventional warheads. All of these three systems were not only used yesterday, but were also used in April this year to intercept more than 300 such drones and ballistic cruise missiles that were launched by Iran. So we've seen what exactly Iran's done, but what is going to be Israel's move, and all eyes are on that. Now, many say this has had limited impact, so to say. So was this attack by Iran really ineffective? And if so, has that put Israel on top?
איראן עשתה הערב טעות גדולה, והיא תשלם על כך. המשטר באיראן לא מבין את נחישותנו להגן על עצמנו ואת נחישותנו לגמול לאויבינו.
At my direction, the United States military actively supported the defense of Israel, and we're still assessing the impact. Make no mistake, the United States is fully supportive of Israel.
This is the impact site for one of those Iranian ballistic missiles, and if you see the size of this crater, that's about 30 feet deep and maybe 50 feet wide.
Let me open this up. Joining us on this broadcast, Amit Halevi, member of the Israeli Knesset, Nadav Steinman, board chair of the ILF, Peter Kuznick, professor of history and director of Nuclear Studies Institute at the American Institute, will be with us as well. Dr. Farshid Bagarian, political analyst and someone who closely monitors West Asia, is with us. Mark Sofer, former Israeli ambassador to India. Tara Karta, former director of NSCS, will be joining us shortly as well. But I want to begin by asking the member of parliament here from Israel, Amit Halevi. Thank you so much for speaking with us here on CNN News 18. You know, all eyes are on what Israel is going to do next. I understand these are not details that would be divulged on television. These are perhaps being discussed in the power corridors of Israel. But what is it that Israel is looking to do next?
I think that what we all need to looking for now is to actually to overthrow the Ayatollah regime. I think should be the discourse, the international discourse. This should be the goal of our operation, and we need to join forces with all the free world, because this regime is not only threatening the Israeli country, but also the whole world. And that's why the strategic goal must be overthrowing this regime, not only in Lebanon. Actually, Iran took over Lebanon, as you know, for many years, and conquered actually all South Lebanon, but actually Lebanon at whole. So we need, Israel cannot cannot afford itself anymore this now neo-Nazi regime on its border, on its border, and in our neighborhood anymore.
You know, Mr. Halevi, it's an open secret that the strings of a lot of these terror organizations are being pulled by Iran, that these are proxies for Iran. When we had this kind of attack come to the fore, the Iranian side even came out and said that this was revenge for the killing of Hassan Nasrallah. Do you think Iran is risking a wider conflict for West Asia, for the rest of the world, just to honor these terrorists, and now that secret is completely out of the bag?
No, that's a known fact. I mean, I don't think it's a secret. Iran supports. Let's start from Lebanon. Lebanon, it's not a terror organization. Lebanon, these are Iranian forces. I mean, when we talk about Hezbollah, it's part of the Iranian army, nothing less. I mean, the Revolution Guards organization of Iran, it's part of the regime army. And it's a very, very organized way. The past that the secretary of Hezbollah has been elected by Iranian regime, by the leaders, in a very, very ordinary way. And the same thing in all other places. I mean, in Iraq, in Syria, there are militias of Iran there. I'm talking about dozens of thousands. I mean, it's not 100 people or something like that. And all these things include the Sunni Hamas regime in Gaza and in Judea and Samaria. Also, those groups are supported and sponsored by Iran. So Iran, it's not something, people talk about the April 14 or yesterday attack, the direct attack of Iran. We should not agree to this type of discourse, because Iran actually for many years fighting Israel. The fact that it does it through proxies, it's just cheating. I mean, it's nothing but Iran. So that's why Iran is here. Iran is on the table. And as I said, the target should be overthrowing Iran regime forever. I mean, when I was a child, when I was a young boy, I mean, you know, we stood about, we learned about the Nazis regime in those times, 8 years ago. And I think we are in the similar situation. I mean, this is a regime that actually has totalitarian and barbarian vision. It's not a secret. It's this is the formal vision. This is the charter of Hamas organization and of other organizations that's sponsored by Iran. And you know, we are only the first course in their point of view. The West is next, India is next, and all the world. So that's why the definitions between Iran and its proxy, it's not a real distinction. There's not real distinction between those, and we need to tackle the real base of this war, and this is Tehran. This is Iranian regime. Whatever we do today or tomorrow or in the following days, it should serve the main goal of overthrowing this regime from our neighborhood.
Amit Halevi, do stay on with us. I want to get in a view from Tehran as well. And Dr. Bagarian, you've heard what the Israeli lawmaker Amit Halevi had to say. This is what a lot of people within Israel, outside of Israel, also believe, that Iran's nuclear program, their security apparatus, is something that could or should be hit in response to what has happened. Many also believe that this could be a strategic blunder on side of Iran, because this could further push Iran into isolation. Is that something you agree with?
This is my turn, sorry.
Dr. Bagarian, yes.
Yeah, thank you very much. If you are talking about the Iran nuclear program, you know, Iran is using a peace process, but changing the doctrine of the nuclear program is maybe Iran can make it in some second, because as you see the war between Ukraine and Russia is switching and changing the doctrine for the nuclear program to use the nuclear warhead against the Ukraine, against the Western powers. Israel itself as the nuclear power and maybe use it and claimed it many times that we can use our nuclear power. So Iran has the right to use it, and Iran has the right to improve it. This is the right for not only for Iran, for every country around the world has the right. Right now, the level of analysis of mine and the level of analysis of any state is different because of the subject position. If you think and if you see and look at what is happening in the Middle East from the United States, you can see another thing, another scene, and from Iran you can see another, because we have to protect our borders. Why? We suffered from some assassination. This assassination is damaged our sovereignty, it damaged our territorial integrity, and is done by Israel. But I don't believe that Israel itself make it. Believe me, Israel is not much powerful that to do that itself. Definitely, CIA and the other intelligence services like MI6 and CIA help Israel. So I'm not blaming Israel for that, even for Mr. Ismail Haniyeh for Hassan Nasrallah. But the revenge, revenge is not the word that uses by the government. Revenge is maybe used by public. Governments make response. So right now, you can see Israel literature is full of, if you analyze quote, is full of revenge word. Revenge is different thing. Revenge has to use by me, by a public people, by the normal people. Iran make responses. Iran spent too much time for strategical patience. Iran referred to the United Nations. Iran asked many international court to protect his right, but nobody answered. Nobody answered. So Iran last night did make decision, because the decision was not only by Iran, because it was coordinated and simultaneously with Hezbollah, the rocket from Beirut. And the next time definitely would be more simultaneously and coordinated with another proxies. Proxies. What is proxies? Any government in the world use the proxies power. Any government in the world. Because if you have not proxies power, you are not government. So Right now, everybody blame Iran that they use proxies. These proxies, for example, say that Nasrallah before assassination told that we are acting without Iran permission. How we can see that? How we can say that Hezbollah is an Iran proxy? Definitely, Iran supported. I believe supported because when the pagers blast, one of them was the Iran ambassador.
So why shouldn't they then be called proxies?
Sorry.
Or terror? Why shouldn't they then be called proxies of Iran? Because, like you said, like you just admitted, that on multiple occasions, Iran has extended their support. The fact that this attack was announced as retaliation or revenge or avenging the death of Hassan Nasrallah goes on to show that they were in fact proxies for them.
Yeah. Yesterday, Iran claimed this missile operation was for Ismail Haniyeh, Hassan Nasrallah, and Neil Furushan, the commander general, as a revenge program. I told you that the revenge. I'm not supporting revenge by government. Personally, I'm Iranian, but I'm supporting revenge. Revenge is not logical, but it's the response that should be the response. After that, the foreign minister of Iran told that our missile program or our missile operation is finished, and we stopped here, and this was enough for us. This is reason. This is reasonable action. For that reason, Iran is not there is no desire for Iran to spreading over the war around the Middle East, because Iran maybe for example, by means of economy, maybe cannot stand the war. Maybe by means of the other neighbors, when they cannot stand the war. Maybe because of the support of the people of Iran, maybe cannot spread over the war. Iran is not spreading over the war because there is some reason for that. Yeah,
sure.
There's some reason for that.
Sure, Mark, so far Iran's not the aggressor here, Israel is. That's what Tehran believes. We want to end this right here. We don't want any escalation, is what Tehran has been saying, is what Iran has been saying, that this was a one-time retaliation and we don't want anything to go beyond this. But that's clearly not the view that Israel and Israel's ally take, Mark Sofa.
Well, I think that's a bit of a strange argument, to say the least. Iran fires almost 200 rockets and missiles into Israel, causing 10 million people to scurry into the shelters. And when they finish doing that, we finished. Well, it doesn't work like that. I'm terribly sorry. It works in the sense that every country in the world which is fired from abroad, almost 200 rockets and missiles from a foreign country, which is, of course, a declaration of war, has the right to self-defense. And I think it was all basically summed up.
Yeah.
Dr. Bagarian, let him finish, please.
Please don't interrupt me. I didn't interrupt.
No problem. I finished already.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Yes, Mark Sofer, please go ahead.
I think you can wait and listen to perhaps the other side of the coin. I think it was all basically told the whole story is what we saw at the footage at the very beginning, with the Iranian parliamentarians rejoicing at 180 missiles being shot at 10 million innocent people. You don't have to agree with the country, you don't have to agree with its policies, but to fire 180 missiles at people going around their daily lives is a disgrace by any civilized standard. And so I think we should put that into its perspective as it is right now. Now, I myself don't believe and don't agree with very, very much of what the Israeli government is doing as far as the future is concerned for the Palestinians, as far as the future is concerned for Gaza. But I think that the Iranians completely misunderstood us here because they misunderstand our resilience, they misunderstand our resolve, they misunderstand of the people of Israel. I'm not now talking of the government, I'm talking of the people. On one thing we are united, and that is when we are attacked vehemently and violently and virulently like we were attacked last night, we will not sit idly by. And this is a consensus from left to right. So we do have our major differences of opinion in Israel. And as I said earlier, I am one of the opposers of the current Israeli government, one of the biggest opposers. However, this has brought us together. This is uniting us. This is bringing us to the thought that we cannot sit idly by when we are being virulently attacked by a state just because it has a problem with its proxies or with it because Nasrallah, who is an arch murderer, and Hamas and etc., who are working, financed, armed in every way by the Iranian regime and attacking us as a result of that, have been put out of action or killed, as they should be, as arch terrorists.
Absolutely. It's innocents that are at the end of it, in the midst of it. It's October 7th, the Hamas attack is a 1 year to that is going to be in just a few days. And there are still several of those hostages that we have no idea about what their status is when they're going to be returning home. And Nadav, Simon, you've come to us from Jerusalem. You know, we saw how millions of people late last night, yesterday, were rushed into bunkers, were into shelters when those air raid sirens went on. And that's not a feeling that any common citizen in Israel would want to live with. And for how long are they supposed to live with that?
Well, I have many ways to respond to that, but if I may, I'd like to draw the parallels between our two countries in the sense that there is one side that is being accused of genocide, while the other side is actually working hard to attempt it. Israel defends against genocide. There is one country that is the aggressor, but as any time it takes a defensive action, it's called the aggressor. There is one side which wishes to live in peace, and as an Israeli, we know that we don't all share the same opinion, but we all have the intention of bringing ourselves to peace with our neighbors. And the same can be said about India, but I don't believe your neighbors or our neighbors are on the same page of us as either of us. So our two countries have this similarity that should be drawn to your viewers in the sense that we are being attacked. It says for Palestinian rights or other rights, but perhaps if we should just take away all the rhetoric and understand that similar to India's being under attack and Israel being under attack, it's because our enemies don't want us here because of who we are. In India, they don't want you because you're Hindu. In here, they don't want us because we're Jews. They don't want us next to them. They want to eradicate us. So how do we live in that type of environment? Is this, as Iran, just making a defensive or retaliatory action? Seems to me not the clear picture that your viewers should see. The picture that your viewers should see is one that you live in your own country as well, where your neighbor has a stated intent of trying to annihilate your entire country and every one of its citizens. That is the way that we live here. Why do we live like that? It's just because of who we are. So I draw that parallel to say that your people and our people do not wish to live in a state where we are being attacked, not for some rhetoric political view, but really it's because of who we are as humans, that we have a different religion, that we have a different faith. We pray to the same God. And I wish to state that an important fact that in a couple of hours, Jews around the world will be praying for the celebrating the Jewish New Year.
The New Year, yes.
Correct, in Israel and Jews around the world, where our prayers are really not just directed to ourselves, it's directed to mankind. We seek for God to provide peace, security, and to all of mankind, to provide us health and security with our families, and every other thing that one good-natured people should be wishing for. But just like India, Israel is in a position where its enemies do not want that for us. What is the most striking of all the videos that you thought is what that was absent, where there's many videos taken from Gaza, where there are cheers and celebrations as they watch and film as missiles are being directed against us, celebrating our death. We don't celebrate a death. Indians do not celebrate death. We're here to protect our people, and I'd like to draw that parallel to your viewers to understand why this is a conflict that is not just limited to this geographical area, but is against us with the values that we share between our two countries. Those are what's under attack. So the question as to whether or not we wish to do this, do we have an option? Unless they can see that we will be continuing to live here, unless they can see that Indians will continue to be inhabiting their lands and Jews will be continued to living here, that we are not going anywhere and Indians are not going anywhere. We are living in our countries. And until they can accept that, there can be full and perfect peace between us. But it's up to them. Just like India has the same problem. It's not only in our hands. So we must defend ourselves against attack. Sure. I don't know what alternative we have.
Sure, and speaking of India, Tarakarta, you know, India is one of those countries, like many other alliance partners of Israel, have called out and asked for restraint because the fears of this becoming a wider conflict, a wider escalation, perhaps on the precipice of which we already are, that threat is real. And the ramifications are not going to be limited to just to these two countries. It's going to be to the rest of the world as well. But is there going to be a solution? Is there going to be a standing back from either sides now?
I just reacting to what the previous gentleman says. I mean, I agree India has a genuine problem, sponsor terrorism. We know where that comes from. We know how it goes. But there is an important difference. We do not attack civilians. We have a very, very strong line in terms of how we react within the country in Kashmir and outside it. We do not attack civilians. So what I think the Prime Minister and the rest of the world, is not just India, is trying to say is that, look, people are dying on both sides. I think in Palestine, there's about 30,000 odd deaths across. You can't sustain this. It's impossible. Instead of drawing back, it seems to be getting worse. Now, you can definitely make the argument that what Iran wants is to sit tight and continue its proxies, which Israel is now not allowing, which is valid. I mean, why should Israel allow that thing to go on? I mean, that Iran just has Hezbollah, it's got the Houthis, it's got a bunch of people who can attack Israel who is living in peace in its own area. So that is a solid argument, but somewhere we've got good relations with Iran. We have no issues with either, which is why the Prime Minister is talking of, somehow trying to get people to talk and sit down, because this has to stop. Like you said, it is causing a lot of harm to the global economy. It's causing a lot of harm to plans which we have. In terms of the corridor, which we would like to extend through that. We had great hopes of, the Saudis and the Iranians coming together. We don't want certain countries making their influence in these areas. Who we're talking about. We would like these, this thing to stop before it gets out of hand. And it is getting out of hand. And the ones who are suffering are the people of Israel and the people of Palestine. And it's people on both sides. I mean, how simple is that to understand? So I would really sort of ask the Prime Minister of Israel to sort of rethink how he goes across with this. South Lebanon is a Hezbollah base. Let's face it, it is a base for Hezbollah. You can say it is an invasion, but I don't know how much sovereignty Lebanon has over that area. So it is South. If you want to end this, you have to end that area. I agree with all of that.
And that buffer zone and the blue line that has been put in place by the United Nations, that's something that doesn't seem to be working, which seems to be the bigger problem. A solution to that is also what Israel seems to be wanting to look for. But Peter Kuznick, speaking of the United States, and we've seen the kind of reactions that have come to the fore from Iran, from Tehran, that it's United States that is to blame for what's happening in West Asia. Now, that's the kind of criticism that has come to the fore against the American administration, any of them in the recent past, as far as multiple other conflicts are concerned.
There's a lot of blame to go around. The Iranians have good reason to hate the United States. In 1953, the United States overthrew Mossadegh, the leader in Iran, who was enormously popular. He was Time magazine's Man of the Year on the cover the year before. The reason, and he had, the U.S. ambassador said he had the support of 98% of the Iranian people, and the CIA overthrew him and imposed the Shah. And we've seen a horrible history. I'm certainly not a fan of the Iranian leadership and Khamenei. They represent the opposite of my values. But nor am I a fan of Netanyahu, who also represents the opposite of my values. As a Jewish American, I grew up admiring Israel and thinking very highly of Israel, as did my entire family. And now I've seen Israel, a nation of people who escaped from fascism and the Holocaust, turning into their opposite. I mean, so this to me is not, what's going on in Gaza is nightmarish. What the Israelis are doing in Gaza is horrific crimes. And so we have to put this in context. I don't see any good guys in this region, but what I do see is the danger of a catastrophic escalation. I condemn what Iran did. I condemn what Israel is doing. But the danger is that when the JCPOA, the Iran nuclear deal, was, in effect, Iran was a year away from developing nuclear weapons. Now Iran might be a week or 2 weeks away from developing nuclear weapons. If Iran develops a nuclear weapon, then all bets are off, because Saudi Arabia, Egypt, United Arab Emirates, that entire region is going to go nuclear. So what we see now is very, very dangerous, but what could come out of this is far more dangerous than what we see now, which is why everybody's got to step back. We need a ceasefire in Gaza. We need Israel to withdraw from southern Lebanon. We need to have negotiations. And I'd like to see regime change in Israel and in Iran and throughout that region, because there are no leaders with any vision. What we see are hawks, militarists, people who think they have a religious right to kill others in all of those countries. And the world is a much more dangerous place as a result. And so when you ask about the United States under the Biden administration is giving full support to Israel no matter what, even though Netanyahu has repeatedly not only ignored but humiliated, rejected Biden. Biden is still there saying that we're going to defend Israel no matter what happens. Well, I think the world needs a different kind of leadership right now.
Mark Sofer, would you agree that leadership change in the entire region is perhaps what is the need of the hour? Not just with Iran?
If I might, I have a bit of a difficulty from both the madam and the previous speaker, this comparison between Israel and Iran. And I do need to remind everybody here that Israel is not seeking to eradicate Iran, but Iran is seeking to eradicate Israel. So I think this corollary, this comparison of the two is rather warped to begin with. And I must remind us all of that. It's crucial. Now, I'm not a favor of the Israeli government right now. Many of us are not, more than 50%, I would say, according to most public opinion polls. But it's a democracy. And that's how things work in a democracy. And whether we like it or not, and I don't, as I've said, in a democracy, issues work through electoral processes. Iran is not a democracy. As I said, Iran, the Iranian regime, and here I do agree with Mr. Amit Halevi, the Iranian regime has to change, because wherever the Iranian regime has its nefarious finger, if it's in Morocco, if it's in Lebanon, if it's in Syria, in Yemen, or wherever, of course in Iraq and Lebanon, we have death and destruction and butchery and instability. And that really has to change. You never see Iran promoting some sort of peaceful process. You never see Iran trying to move issues forward as we would really like. And I think if he does that, he will find the Israeli people very, very much in cahoots with it. I will say one other thing, and this I must. Israel has no quarrel whatsoever with the Iranian people. Nothing whatsoever. We must make a distinction between the Iranian people and this primitive medieval regime that is governing it right now, which, as I said earlier, just has death and destruction at its pinnacle of its policy. We must and should work effortlessly to find a way to move forward, including with the Palestinians. And I fully agree with that. There must be a political horizon for the Palestinians, and the onus is upon us as well. It's no good just to sweep the issue under the carpet. However, there must also be a cessation of calling for an eradication of a member state of the United Nations. There must be a cessation, immediate cessation of the unbelievable firing of the rockets that we had last night. And this is what we will fight against, even those who really, really, truly wish for peace between Israel and the Palestinians, as I and very many of my colleagues do.
Absolutely. Tarakarta, I just want to ask you this. Often India is accused of sitting on the fence when it comes to these kind of issues. Yes, we've called for restraint. That's what a lot of other nations around the world have also called, and that's perhaps what is required at this particular time. But many say that India must take a stance one way or the other. Is that something that we could be doing?
I don't really think so. I mean, having said that, what the previous the speaker said, Israel has a right to defend itself against terrorism. That is very clear. I mean, there's no two ways on that. But at the same time, the fact is that this whole sustained 1 year now war in Gaza, that has to stop. So there's no taking sides. We are saying, please stop this carnage. And as we said, as our foreign minister said, our side is our interests. And our interest is that this war should stop. And it's the interest of much of the global south. Because if this gets out of control, it is our economies which are going to suffer. It is our interests, our plans, which is going to take a backseat. And on a purely moral note, as I said, these are civilians dying. I mean, it's unacceptable. But at the same time, I entirely agree that Iran has to stop its policy. That policy of encouraging these diverse groups who, as he said, indulge in all kinds of acts across. You can't expect Israel to sit down and say, okay, Hezbollah started targeting us, okay, that's okay, we can take it. It's unacceptable. So that is also, so what we would like to see is, as the Prime Minister said, the Palestinians need to be given some rights. They need to be given a safe place to live. And that's what we would like to work towards.
Absolutely, and that's what the world would like to move towards as well. Unfortunately, I'm completely out of time. This conversation has been an enriching one. Now, we hope to continue it here because this conflict, as we see, unfortunately, is not going away anytime soon. We do hope, though, that there is peace sooner than later for all of those innocent lives that are involved, for all of the citizens that are caught in the crossfire. But I have to thank you all for joining us here on this broadcast and sharing your perspective. It is time for a quick break on this edition of Plain Speak, but our coverage here on the West Asia conflict continues, so don't go anywhere.
At L'Oréal Group,
Welcome back. You're watching Plain Speak, and the conflict in West Asia continues to escalate. What is going to be Israel's next move? Because all eyes are on that. The strategy, of course, is being discussed in the power corridors there, but Iran's not going to give up as well. That provocation from the Iranian side comes in. Israel says we have the right to hit back, to avenge what was done to us, and to ensure that our territorial integrity and sovereignty is never threatened again. Member of the Israeli Knesset, Amit Halevi, continues to be with us on this broadcast, and I appreciate you staying on with us right from the beginning. But, I want to ask you this. There is a diplomatic solution that Israel has been in favor of, that is being talked of for years together, because this is a culmination of a conflict that has been going on for decades. The world is calling for this restraint. But is that solution possible?
I think that we tried in the past many diplomatic solutions, and it didn't go well regarding the Nazis regime. I don't think it will go well with this regime. I mean, we cannot make compromise with Nazi ideology, and we have a deal here with this prototype of regime. So I don't think diplomacy will be the right answer. I think the Western countries must put on the table a very, very strong iron wall in front of the Iranian regime, because otherwise the war will be end with just like another round, another circle, and we will all be under the future attack of Iran. I mean, what should happen in order that people around the world will understand that those 181 missiles next time will be shooted on Rome, on Paris, on London? I mean, why do you think, or New Delhi, or Mecca, by the way, which is part of the formal targets of the Iranian regime, formal target, maybe one of the important targets. I think, by the way, MBS knows it very well. But what about India? What about Europe? What about America? Don't you understand it? I mean, it's on the table. This is the vision. So we are maybe the first course in our radical and horrible plan. But it will not end with Israel. I mean, we are here in the front line, but our soldiers are fighting for Rome, for New Delhi, for Mecca, for Washington. That's the real war here. So I don't think diplomacy, like it wasn't, as I said, like in the Second World War, the same thing. Churchill, he didn't agree. Even in the end of the war, he said, let's make compromise with Hitler. He said there is no compromise with the Nazis' ideology. It's not a matter of the status in terms of the IDF or the military status. We are talking about here ideology that want to destroy the world. The world cannot afford itself to let this show keep going.
The show definitely cannot go on the way it is, because there are several millions of innocents that are caught in the crossfire, including those 100-odd hostages that were taken by Hamas close to a year ago. But Mr. Amit Halevi, thank you so much for speaking with us here on CNN News 18. I understand that this could be a difficult time for you. Thank you so much.
With your permission, to the Iranian people, to the Lebanon people, Lebanon should belong to the Lebanon, to the Lebanese, not to the Syrian people, not to the Iranian people, not to PLO people like it was in the past. No, it belongs to the Lebanese. And the Christian communities, the Druze communities, the moderate Muslim communities should come together and should make everything they can do together with us, together with the Western countries like America and France that has few anchors in Lebanon, and we all together should bring Lebanon as well as Iran to a new future. It's possible. It's our duty, and I hope we will all together will join forces to this mission.
Terror in all its forms must be brought to its knees. That's really the message. Amit Halevi, thank you so much for speaking with us here on CNN News 18. It's time for a quick break on this edition of Plain Speak. But like we've been discussing, it's been close to 24 hours now since that unprecedented attack from Iran on Israel. But what is Israel going to do next? What did Benjamin Netanyahu mean when he said Tehran will pay? Israel's Consul General for South India, Orly Weitzman, decodes that for us after this very quick break. Don't go anywhere.
Co-powered by
Joining me on this broadcast, Orly Weitzman, Israeli Consul General to South India. Thank you, Ms. Weitzman, so much for speaking with us here on CNN News 18. You know, this is for the second time in 6 months that we've seen this kind of aerial barrage at Israel that we saw last night. Now, Israel has vowed retaliation. It's going to take whatever it takes to protect Israel's sovereignty is the clear message that has come to the fore. But what comes next?
So I think I just saw that you broadcasted our Prime Minister's speech to the people for our Rosh Hashanah celebration. Tonight we're celebrating the Jewish New Year. So I think he made it very clear that there will be retaliation. There will be Israel will have to do whatever it needs to do in order to protect itself, and that can be Israel will have to take into consideration both immediate safety and long-term safety. And I'm sure that we'll see we'll know when it happens. We'll see the response needed, but the response is to make sure that Israel is safe and that the evils in this world, the main evil in this world today is dealt with.
You know, I understand that you can't divulge much, like you said, when the time is right, that sort of retaliation would come to the fore. But there are several calls that are being made of what Israel could be doing next. We had Naftali Bennett also put out a social media post of how this is an opportunity for Israel, of how they decide to act in the future as far as Iran's nuclear program is concerned, their central energy facilities are concerned. Is that something that we could see happen in the future?
So I think we all can see people like Naftali Bennett, who used to be the Prime Minister of Israel, and other officials who can lay out the various kinds of possibilities. But I myself, I'm a government representative, and the government will, of course, not discuss the options and the reaction on television. So I think the best way to try and get that information is from people like Naftali Bennett or others who you see on Twitter, because the Israeli official government is not going to discuss the response itself on television.
Sure, I understand that. But, you know, as far as what the options are or what Israel could be doing, a diplomatic solution is something that Israel has wanted. Unfortunately, that's something that hasn't happened.
Yeah.
Is there still hope for that?
So I think if a country like Iran decides to change its face, put down its weapon, agrees to publicly agree to Israel's right to exist and to stop threatening Israel, and to be willing to basically accept Israel as part of the world, then maybe there's something to talk about. But that's unfortunately not the situation. Iran keeps swearing again and again that its aim is to destroy Israel, and it doesn't think that Israel has a right to exist. And until that happens, that makes any diplomatic solution very difficult. And the immediate solutions, for Lebanon, there could have been a diplomatic solution by implementing UN Resolution 1701. That still is an option, and Israel hopes that will be implemented, and that will give us really a solution to be able to bring our people, the Israeli people, back to their homes in the north after having been left the north for over almost a year now, that they have to leave their homes because they're being attacked by missiles from Lebanon.
You know, speaking of that overarching objective that we've been speaking of, the blue line, so to say, as far as Lebanon is concerned, that the UN had drawn. Israel's objective eventually is that after this ground offensive, that Hezbollah forces are pushed much beyond that northern boundary, beyond the Litani River. But is that objective, is that buffer zone still achievable? Is that something that could still happen?
So, I mean, again, if it's a diplomatic solution, if the Lebanese army takes charge, the Lebanese government takes charge and make sure that Hezbollah doesn't populate the places where Israel is affected, then it could be achievable. But it really depends on how they decide to play it there. And Israel will do what it can to make sure that the areas are clear. The areas that threaten Israel the most are clear. To give you more information than that, exactly how deep it is and where to, I can't do that. But I don't know myself, but that's something that militarily is checked all the time. But Israel is doing, again, diplomatically is like the most preferred solution. But even if it isn't, it's in other means, then whatever needs to be done to make sure that the northern borders of Israel are safe will be done.
You know, speaking of the Hezbollah, and it's no secret that Iran has been long has been the puppeteer of organizations like the Hezbollah. But after what happened yesterday, after what happened last night for us here, the Iranian mission actually went to the United Nations. They justified this launch. They said this was just a reaction to terrorist acts by a country like Israel. How do you respond to that?
I think it's ridiculous. I think it's making mockery of the UN to say things like that. Israel was attacked on the 7th of October 2023 without being provoked in any way. And I remind you what happened that day. Terrorists entered houses, entered villages, kidnapped people who are still hostages, raped women, killed babies in front of their parents, killed parents in front of their babies, burned whole families alive. Okay, and then the next day, from the 8th of October, the Hezbollah, again unprovoked, started firing rockets at Israel. So to say that they're responding to us, so Israel, of course, had to defend itself. It can't let the situation continue. And then suddenly to say that it's reacting to our aggression, that's ridiculous. We were attacked and we have the right to defend ourselves. Israel has the right to defend itself. It will defend itself. And Iran chooses for years now, to try and do everything that it can to destroy Israel, to provoke Israel, to attack Israel. Iran is clearly the aggressor here. And I think last night showed that when they sent hundreds of missiles indiscriminately at civilian population. There's no way of defending that. Okay, there was indiscriminate firing at all the population, and this is after they used their proxies to try and provoke us throughout this whole year. With the biggest attack being, of course, on October 7th. But that's ridiculous.
Namaste, Jai Hind, and welcome to this edition of The Right Stand. I'm Anand Narasimhan. It's just 5 days now to the 7th of October, the day when last year Hamas terrorists waged the deadliest attack on Israel at the Tribe of Nova Music Festival. Heavily armed terrorists burst through the border and many of them rampaged through the festival, killing at least 364 people and taking more than 40 hostage. Many of them are still being held in Gaza. Tensions have escalated between Iran and Israel since then, and Israel has vowed to teach the axis of evil, Hezbollah, Houthis and Hamas, all alleged proxies of Iran, a lesson. On the 31st of July this year, Hamas has said its political leader Ismail Haniyeh was killed in an overnight strike in Iran amid a mounting series of bombardments against the Hezbollah on the 27th of September. An Israeli strike on its South Beirut stronghold killed the group's leader Hassan Nasrallah. On the 28th of September, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said that there is no place in Iran or the Middle East that the long arm of Israel cannot reach, as he warned Iran against any attempts to attack his country over the targeted killing of Hezbollah chief Hassan Nasrallah in an airstrike by the Israeli armed forces. As Israel announced limited ground operations against the Hezbollah in southern Lebanon, Iran rained fire on the Israeli skies as it launched a barrage of missiles at Israel in what the Revolutionary Guards say was a response to the killings of Nasrallah and Haniyeh. Rockets lit up the skies over Jerusalem on Tuesday after Iran fired a salvo of ballistic missiles at Israel in retaliation for Israel's campaign against Tehran's Hezbollah allies in Lebanon. Alarms sounded across Israel and explosions could be heard in Jerusalem and the Jordan River Valley after Israelis piled into bomb shelters. 10 million Israelis in bomb shelters for nearly 2 hours. We are showing you visuals of the moment of impact of a missile in the area of Tel Aviv. Israel vowed a painful response against its enemy. Iran fired around 200 missiles into Israel as a retaliation to the killing of Hezbollah leader Hassan Nasrallah, escalating the years-long conflict between the two nations and its Arab allies and triggering a bigger war in the Middle East. Seconds into the attack, Israel put up its anti-missile system to intercept Iran and sounded air raid sirens as residents scrambled into bomb shelters. Israel's Iron Dome and other aided technologies like arrows, etc.